All right, welcome to another episode of OCSN Live. Of course, I'm your host, Sheik Styles. So much has been going on in the past week of the sports world, both here in the Delaware Valley and all over the nation. And if you're into international soccer, well, all over the world, because there's been some interesting upsets over on the other side of the pond as well, which we won't get into because we got a bunch of stuff going on. First and foremost, Phillies finally made the playoffs. What? Yeah, it's been over a decade that the Phillies will actually be playing in a playoff series. Not to mention, the Birds, man, almost a quarter of a way through, 4-0, have the best record in the NFL. We got some stuff to talk about with just commentators going a little crazy, and the NHL hockey is almost here. If you are a hockey fan, you cannot wait. If you're not a hockey fan, I implore you, man, go out to a game. It's a lot like baseball in the sense that if you go to a live game, you'll fall in love with it. Not to mention if you're a bit of a degenerate like me, it's great to bet on. But before I jump into anything else, gotta thank all of our sponsors, people like Lugaroo who do custom jerseys at lugaroo.co. Just learned that the Reading Royals hockey team, they actually do all the jerseys for them, which is pretty awesome. Of course, our friends at Righteous Felling Craft Beef Jerky, our buddies over at Sterling Pig, Neshaminy Creek. We got our friends at Norse Beards. There's a lot of sponsors that help make this whole boat go, and our friends at Fanatics as well. We'll talk about some of them as we go in and out. But first and foremost, we're going to jump into how I feel the Philly season has gone.
Enjoy this. You've earned it. Okay? Fuck yeah!
What I mean by that, the manager forgot that that the cork was still on the champagne bottle. He was trying to be really classy, and then you hear Bryce Harper scream, "Fuck yeah!" And yeah, man, the guys are really excited. I think they're the most excited 40 people in Philadelphia for the Phillies to be in the playoffs. Maybe we could add 41 because we got our man Vince here from the fan lot. What's going on, Vince?
Hey, whoever handed him that bottle needs to get fired. They had one job.
Well, let me tell you, man. I mean, you should have known that you got to pop the cork as you finish the speech, man. It's been like that for over a century. But interested. So it's been 11 years. 11 years. To put it in perspective, the last time the Phillies made the playoffs, there were still 3,500 blockbusters in the United States. Like,
see, that's how we know
crazy.
We're old.
That is crazy. I mean, the last time the Phillies made the playoffs, Michael Vick was the starting quarterback for the Eagles.
That's just wild.
I mean, the last time the Phillies made the playoffs, dude, iPhone was up to 4, and people were saying that's ridiculous. You have 4 iPhones. Like, it's been bananas. So tell me, what does this playoff berth really mean, and why should we be excited about it, Vince?
To put it in the complete perspective, one, it shows that we built a good farm system, and it showed in this season. The kids that came up produced, and they built something. And I've said this since we started showing that playoff potential after we got rid of Girardi. All we got to do is get into if it's the first round and we get knocked out, I don't care, because they gave us a promise for next season, and that's what we'll build off. You know what I mean? Like our center field, but that was an issue for the last God knows how long. And we got Brandon Marsh now. That kid is holding out strong as hell for us. I mean, I can't. There's nothing I can say that's bad about him.
And Marsh is on contract for a few years. Marsh, actually, we traded Mickey Moniak essentially for. It wasn't an exact swap, but when you look into how things worked out, and Marsh is what we're hoping Moniak would become.
Mm-hmm. And it proved to work out great for us. I mean, the kid he's getting on base. I mean, you see him today, got on base, and I've seen him make one mistake. You know what I mean? In the outfield, and compared to the bum we had out there before.
Oh,
and then
that's about 6 names. So are you talking about Abdul?
Yeah, I hate that guy aggressively.
Were you talking about Roman Quinn? What are you talking about?
When we released Roman Quinn, I was literally the happiest person because every time he came up to the plate, I was angry, and every time I seen him in the field, I got angrier.
By the way, Steve mentions who loves the Phillies. By the way, the Cards lost today as well, so be interested who wins on Friday. It was a weird last day of the year. People when they're in, they don't really play up to their full potential. Um, Although I will say on a betting tip, I bet the Brewers to beat the Diamondbacks, and literally in the ninth inning, the reliever came in, gave up 3 runs like it was his job, so that way they could lose 4-2. But anyway, that's here nor there. That's what you get. That's like betting on preseason basketball. You just don't do it. Don't be like
Yeah.
me, kids. Getting back to Friday and Saturday, Wheeler Nola against Wainwright, and who's the other star? I know they got a lefty going for the Cardinals. Do you know the
They
gentleman's
haven't
name is?
announced their pitching lineup yet.
Yeah, they announced it earlier. They said Wainwright's going to start game 1, and they said, oh man, I can't think of the man's name, but he's a lefty. Going to start game 2. 2 questions for you. I'll go with the first one. Does anybody have a better 1-2 punch right now than Wheeler and Nola?
Um, in a lot of people sit here and they talk about the Mets, and they're like, they have Schwarzer and DeGrom,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on a pitch count pretty much. The dude can't make it past the 5th inning. DeGrom and Schwarzer, once you get into his mental, he's bad. So I'm just saying, I'm not jumping off. I'm trying to say, when I look at it, I wouldn't say the Wheeler Nola is the best, but out of a playoff perspective, I mean, them two, when they are hot and in the zone, they're scary, man.
The only other actually combination I can think of off the top of my head is actually out in the West, and it's the team that we just got done playing with, McCullers and Verlander. Seem to be pretty solid. But yeah, I have to agree with you. I feel Scherzer and DeGrom live more off of what they've done in the past and how it's been this season. And then my second question for you, just as far as about the Phillies in general, is I mean, do you think that with a lefty starter, normally when a lefty starts, they sit Bryson Stott, and do you think that Topper or Rob Thompson is going to do that same thing and actually have Matt Vierling or Sosa be in their starting lineup in a playoff game too?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't do it. That kid, I mean, I don't know if he got jitters towards these last couple games because he's been very solid defensively. And
Stott, you mean?
yeah, when I start seeing him do ballerina twirls and trying to throw the ball, I'm just kind of like, dude, just calm down. Like, you don't need to get that ball to first if there's no play. And that's what's been happening. I think he's just so deadheaded to get into the playoffs that he was like, I have to get this guy out. And he just won it and ended up in the dugout, I think, like 3 times.
Yeah, it just don't need to be that fancy. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's breathe easy.
Yep.
We gotta remember Stott's a young guy, but like, hey man, we're here. I do get '07 vibes as far as what we got going on with the team. Might not be good enough just yet, but these playoffs are going to help them tremendously.
Yeah, but it's not like a wild card team has not won the World Series. It's happened
quite a few,
6 or 7 times. So
yeah, were the Braves a wild card last year?
No,
they weren't. I know the Nationals were 2 years ago. They won the World Series, but there's been a few. I mean, I think it's been like 6 or 7.
Yeah, the Nats just did it in 2019. They were a wild card team, and they went and they won the World Series. It's not completely implausible for this Philadelphia team, because if I see this team come out the way they were in June and the way they started the season, and they come out like a new team coming, Friday, I'd be worried for the rest of the teams that are in the postseason.
Well, I will tell you this. I personally, this is what I wanted in the sense of I wanted to play the Cardinals because I feel we own the Cardinals. And then I wanted them to have to play the Braves and the Dodgers, because I feel we've done pretty well and shown that we can hold our own. Even in losses with the Braves, we hung with them. So I think that, the Mets are just a bad matchup for us, in my opinion. And the Padres are such a huge wild card in a sense, no pun intended. You just don't know what team is going to show up. But you already know we could handle the Braves. We could handle the Dodgers. When we were going back-to-back World Series, we beat the Dodgers in the NLCS. So a little history there, too, if we played them again in the NLCS. But I think this is lining up the best way possible for the Phillies to shock the world, so to speak.
Yeah. I look at it like the Mets are like kind of like our daddy this season, but the Braves are grandpa because they own the Mets. So when it comes down to it, this is the scenario I wanted. I wanted us to play the Cardinals. I wanted us to go and play the Braves in the second round or in the DS game because I wanted us to go and suck the vacuum of excitement out of their stadium when we take it and walk away.
I agree, man. Like let's just knock that. I really, honestly, I don't like any of the other teams in the playoffs but the Phillies in the NL. Like normally, I think the one team that I wouldn't like is the Cardinals, or that I would have the least kind of hatred towards is the Cardinals. But oh come on, computer! I was trying to be smooth, but let me show you. We got our little blast from the past that we're going to discuss here on the show because this, and it's going to be kind of our new segment here, is like kind of bringing back something in history. If you remember 11 years ago, the team that ended kind of our run was the Cardinals. 1-0 in a game that we definitely should have won. And that was the game that Ryan Howard blew out his Achilles and kind of ended his career. So
that was his first one attempt fucking sprinting out the first base.
Listen, man, I loved Ryan Howard. The man hit 200 home runs in 4 years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you got to give him that. But it's been 11 years. If you want to pay some respect, you can take your hat off. We're going to show all the Phillies we've lost in memory of the 11 years that the Phillies have missed the playoffs and the members of the Phillies that we lost.
For a moment, caught in between 10 and 20, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. I'm 22 for a moment, and she feels better than ever, and we're on fire, making our way back from Mars. When you only got 100 years to live. I'm 33 for a moment. I'm still the man, but you see I'm there, a kid on the way, babe, a family on my mind.
Perfect DD highlight. Now, if only he could bat over 100. He sucks. I always have a soft spot for him.
No, Matt Moore. Oh man. Oh, that one just got me boiling.
So, and let's put it in perspective. Remember when they were talking about Cody Smashy being like our third baseman cornerstone, or Dominic Brown, the Brown Bomb? Like,
yeah,
all the people we pinned our hopes onto. It's ridiculous. And it's just the whole. Was it John Mayberry Jr. talk about? Oh, I'm not worried about the Bryce Harper signing. You should have been, bro. Definitely should have been.
Who says that? I'm not worried about Bryce Harper. What?
The idea of Scott Kingery being the next Dustin Pedroia, like it was just bad, man.
There was so much hope in that kid. Like everybody was like, "Oh, he's the next, and then that was the biggest bust I've seen. Like, I just.
R.I.P. Scotty's jetpacks, you know what I mean? But probably working a little bit more fills. There is a season that's coming up that people don't seem to be excited about, and that's the Flyers, because a lot of good things are happening in Philly. I mean, you look at the Union look like they're going to possibly go all the way this year. Eagles 4-0. Of course, the Sixers hype train is already starting again, and then the Phils are in the playoffs. But I want to bring in a man, not just to talk Flyers, but to give an NHL preview. He also does an AHL show, one of only a handful of people that has a show along with Sam on the network. Men want to be with him. Men want to be him. Women want to be with him. I messed up the line. I'm so sorry, Dan. My bad, Dan Bradley.
I don't think I will ever have another introduction in my life. At the level of this introduction that we just had right here. That was something. That was quite the introduction. I don't know how for the rest of this show, I don't know if anything I say is going to be that good.
Well, if you didn't know, apparently Dan Bradley, he's men want to be with him, women want to be him. It's Dan Bradley.
How are we doing tonight, everybody? Sheik Vince, thanks for having me on, guys.
Please let everybody know what time your show's on and the show that you do and all that.
Yeah, so to reel that back in, our AHL show is American Beauties. That airs Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern. Sam Wismer and I talk AHL hockey. We just started the show a couple weeks ago. Already did our deep dives on each of the divisions for this year, so go check that out all over the network. And then before that show on Tuesday nights, I also have my own NHL podcast that I do with a buddy of mine that's outside of OCSN called Pod Snipe Selly. And there we talk all sorts of NHL action. Last night we had our fantasy hockey draft show. So it's been a blast. And this is my third podcast in like 25 hours now, and I absolutely love it. This is great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. You also do some commentary for a hockey team too, correct?
Yeah, so I'm in my 10th season of broadcasting junior hockey. Wow. So I work with the Cincinnati Junior Cyclones. They play in the USPHL, which is a Tier 3 junior program, kids 16 to 20 who looking to make it to the collegiate level and be playing hockey at a college level. Some of these guys go semi-pro or pro after they're done with juniors and after graduation as well. So this is the second year with that team. They just started last season. So brand new franchise. And then, yeah, this is my 10th season doing that.
Wonderful. I did some like broadcast work for like a couple innings with the Reading Phillies baseball wise, which is a lot slower paced. I could only imagine doing it for 10 years for something like hockey where you got to just keep on moving because I feel like from the outside looking in, trying to be a broadcaster for hockey is probably the toughest job in all of broadcasting, just how quickly you have to talk.
See, you would think that, but as you go, and what I've learned is that you start to recognize patterns in the ways that players play, and you can kind of almost anticipate what they're going to do. So the same way that a baseball analyst might know, 3-0 count, you're probably expecting a fastball either down and away or up in the zone, but something there that's going to be a fastball count in that situation. It's almost the same way with hockey where I can anticipate, a certain player is going to dump the puck into the zone. The first forward in is going to go retrieve and try and pick it up. So if I know those lines, those combinations of who is playing together and what types of systems they might play, that's been my biggest challenge. I didn't grow up as someone.
Oh, I'm losing your mic there, Dan.
Oh, you're losing my mic? Are we good
there
here?
We go. Okay.
There we go. All right. Yeah, we'll try and pop that out a little more and make sure we can get that a little better here. Recognizing players, recognizing systems. And I wasn't someone who grew up playing hockey. I just grew up around the game and a fan of the game. Loved it in that regard. I'm a Minnesota kid, so was always watching hockey one way or another. And so for me to start to kind of learn these systems and understand this more, that has only helped me to get better as a broadcaster. And that's something now that I'm really passionate about, is breaking down how all that works.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. About not growing up like playing hockey, because and I'm actually going to take you out for a second, Vince, and just pop in if you want to ask a question real quick. But I didn't grow up really like playing hockey like that either, as far as like organized. But being Philadelphia kid during the Legion of Doom days,
Mm-hmm.
You had an interest to it, and then it kind of wanes a bit. What would you say for someone who maybe isn't considered either a casual hockey fan or not really a hockey fan right now, as far as jumping in this year with the NHL, or maybe not even the NHL, AHL, something like that?
Yeah, I think if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're somebody who is just wanting to get into hockey, yes, it's going to be a tough year for the Flyers. I think I'm not going to, come on your show and try and talk about, oh, this is the year for the Flyers. I would, Jesse would disown me if I came on here and said that. I'd lose all my credibility. The Flyers are going to be, more likely than not, a bottom 5 team this year. But what that means for a team like the Phantoms is a lot of those guys who are kind of on the bubble of, are they AHL or are they NHL? A lot of those guys are going to be working to earn those roster spots and to be competing for that ice time. I think the Phantoms are going to have a very good program this year, just by nature of they've got a lot of guys who are trying to make it to that NHL level. And some of these prospects coming up through the ranks, that it's better for their development right now for them to be at the AHL level, playing more minutes than playing fewer minutes per game at the NHL level. So in that regard, I think the Phantoms are setting up for a really successful season. You mentioned earlier in the show too, just going to a game and the atmosphere that you get when you see a game in person. Anybody can watch on TV, and that's fine. That's a great experience. But there is no experience like going to a game at the ballpark. And whether that's baseball, whether that's hockey, whether that's the NFL, whatever it is, there's no experience like being there in the arena. And you see the speed of the game and how fast these guys really are, the way that they play the game. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you 1 or 2 questions about the AHL.
Sure.
Before I get into kind of your thoughts about the NHL season and maybe some people we need to be looking for, or some teams we need to be looking at. A lot of times with minor league baseball, they promote it as very family friendly. There's a lot of goofy stuff going on that you wouldn't see in MLB teams and things like that. Tell somebody what they could expect if, let's say, for example, and I use, just Pennsylvania, you have the Lehigh Valley Phantoms in Allentown, but you also have the Hershey Bears. I mean, you have you mentioned the ECHL?
Yep, the ECHL. Yep.
So there's other minor league teams. I mean, there's a bunch of hockey teams. There's the Wilkes-Barre Penguins. We don't like to talk about them, but there's stuff out there that you could go to. Sell a little bit AHL hockey for a family that maybe is trying to get their kids into hockey that are under the age of 10.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about the AHL program, and we talk about this on our show all the time, is we like to jokingly refer to it as the Anything Happens League. It's a lot of guys who, especially for the younger players, it's so key for their development to be playing there and often. And these are guys who are hungry, guys who are trying to make it to that next level. But it's still a very high quality hockey event. Like, you're still seeing good hockey. You can't be a bad hockey player and be in the AHL. It's not a punishment to be in the AHL. It's still very competitive most nights. I would say, do see a little bit more of the animosity. There's the old joke that, I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out. That's been an old joke for years. And I think the AHL, more than any other league, kind of has that angle to it, where you see more of that physicality and you see more of that willingness to drop the gloves and have a fight, just because these guys are literally fighting every day for these roster spots. You can get called up, you can get sent down, movement through the lines, whichever. It's tough. You are really competing every single day because there are 50 other people who want your job. From a fan side, though, the atmosphere at junior hockey games, minor hockey games, minor league games, I should say, is incredible, because more often than not, you're not getting, you can go to a Flyers game and you got 20,000 people there, let's say, packing the building for that game. Now, you're going to have some people who are there because it's a social event for them and they don't really care too much about hockey. You got some people who are your diehards and your crazies, but they might be up in the nosebleeds and, drinking 20 beers and just going nuts. With minor league hockey in particular, fan bases just absolutely love their teams. The players on those teams are heroes in those cities. It's the respect that the community has for those players. Like those are our guys, is kind of the approach that they take. So it is really, it is loud in some of these buildings, and it doesn't seem like it's as big, because it's not, as your 20,000 seat arena. But these fans are so passionate and so behind the team that they can make a 5,000 seat arena sound like a 20,000 seat arena. It's just that kind of atmosphere as well. Like I said, going to a game, entirely different than watching it on TV.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question as far as for me, the last time I really followed hockey, the two top guys were Ovechkin and Crosby. And they were at the height. That been that way for quite a bit. I would think that Ovechkin and Crosby are the top two people. Obviously you got the Matthews of the world and things like that. But for someone who maybe hasn't watched hockey in a while, and really followed it more beyond maybe a game or two of their hometown team, who's the one guy they should pay attention to that you would say, all right, if you really want to enjoy hockey, watch this guy?
I have two players in mind that come right to the top of my mind when you ask that question. But I do want to point out as well that Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin are still top 10 players in this league. They are that good, generational type talents who they play their roles in different ways. Alex Ovechkin is a pure goal scorer. Sidney Crosby is an all-around, do a little bit of everything. He's got some of the best hands I've ever seen from a hockey player. But if you want two guys, I'm going to give you one forward and one defenseman who are absolutely changing the game right now. Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers and Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. McDavid is unbelievable. It is speed. It is puck control. It is the agility. It's the creativity. He is a game breaker. It's honestly like having a cheat code when you're in the offensive zone and he's got the puck. What he does is just unbelievable. And I've had the privilege to see him in person. And I'm a Minnesota Wild fan. That's my hometown team. So I got tickets to a Wild game where they were playing the Oilers. When McDavid was on the ice, whether or not he had the puck, I'm watching everything he does. I don't care if the Wild have the puck, because I'm watching what he is doing away from the play to make things better for himself and for everybody else. A player who is very similar, but on that defensive side, Cale Makar, Mikhail scored, I want to say 28, 29 goals last season as a defenseman. Wow. That is unheard of in a modern NHL. He is kind of changing. You get certain players who change the position and the way that a position is played. Makar is kind of becoming that for a defenseman. And he's taking what Bobby Orr first introduced in the idea of an offensive defenseman, and then into Nicholas Lidstrom, who is your more prototypical all-around, this is what you want your modern-day defenseman to do. Makar is, I think, that next level of that progression of a defenseman.
I'm actually going to bring Vince in because I want you to think about, Vince, just one hockey question that you may have about anything with hockey. But before I put Vince on the spot with that, the sexy position, so to speak, like in the NFL is quarterback. In hockey, I would say it's goalie. Everybody seems to always pin goalie's the one. If you got a hot goalie, the phrase "stand on your head," it could change a whole series. Who's the one goalie you would say that someone needs to look out for to watch?
Oh boy, that's tough. I think for me, like if I'm picking just who is the best overall goaltender in the game right now, it's Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Okay. I think everything that he does is so mechanically sound, and he does so many of those little things right that it's just, that he's going to give you a chance to win every single game. But as far as somebody who is perhaps a more entertaining player to watch, Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers is someone who comes to mind. Just the acrobatics of making the saves, the shot volume that he sees. New York's defense last year had, I want to say, something like 30 games where they were outshot by more than 10. And they won like 20 of those games where they were outshot by that much. When you have a goaltender who plays with that degree of confidence and poise and I'm going to do whatever it takes to stop this puck, which Shesterkin is. He's that type of player and person. It just makes the game so much more entertaining to watch. And as hockey players are starting to come up now, for a long time, you couldn't show a lot of personality. You had to be very robotic and, suit and tie into the arena, very formal, very proper.
I remember Ovechkin years ago. I think it was the commentator's name was Cherry. Got on him for showing a lot of
Don Cherry, yeah.
Yeah, and Ovechkin kind of did an interview where he was acting like a robot to kind of make fun of it. And that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's still kind of going on, Dan?
I would say a lot less so now, where players are starting to kind of get to show some more of that personality, have some fun with it. We were talking before the show that we do podcasts because we have fun, right? And if we're having fun, the audience is going to have fun. That's why we do what we do. It's the same way for hockey. At the end of the day, it's a game. You're there to have fun. And yes, these guys are making millions of dollars in a lot of cases to be playing a game. But that said, if you're not having fun with it, why are you doing it? So that's kind of been the mindset lately. And we're seeing guys like Trevor Zegras who are getting more creative offensively and trying things like, a lacrosse style goal or even his lacrosse style assist, going blindfolded at the skills competition and scoring a goal last year. It's that kind of creativity and making the game more fun and more appealing to that next generation of hockey players that's going to keep this thing going.
Absolutely. Vince, I'm curious because from what I understand, you're not a hardcore NHL fan. What would be your hockey question about NHL in general this season?
Is this for Dan or is it just
for Dan, not for me? Yeah.
How do you feel about the players that are coming in compared to like old school players, where you had guys that were taking pucks in the face, falling down, bleeding, and they're back in the game, compared to guys to where they take a slash and they're like, oh, I got to get out of this game, I'm hurt?
I think part of it is the mindset of are you hurt or are you injured? That's kind of been a saying with hockey players for a long time. And for a lot of guys, it's, I'm hurt, I'll miss a shift, I'll be fine, I'm back out there. Especially at the professional level, you don't really see a lot of, I get beat on a play and then all of a sudden I'm pulling up a hammy and, sitting out 2 or 3 shifts. I don't feel like that's really the case.
Well, yeah, there's not LeBron James on the ice.
Right. So you're not going to have a guy like flopping. That's very, very rarely a thing in hockey. Like it just because you get called for embellishment. There is a harsh in-game penalty if you get caught and called out for that type of, embellishment or faking, as it were.
And embellishment, is that a major or a minor?
It's a minor. So it's a 2-minute minor penalty. The other thing is there's also kind of a code among hockey players where if you're someone who's going to do that a lot, they're going to make sure that when they two-hand you, they get you good so that you are actually, feeling that kind of pain and kind of letting that score settle out. That was something that Crosby got in trouble for a lot early in his career, was he was believed to be diving and trying to sell some of these penalty calls. And
actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say hockey, I feel like less so than basketball. You hear, LeBron gets all the calls, James Harden gets all the calls. It's always a foul, whatever. Hockey is kind of the opposite of that, as you see with the trends of who's drawing these penalties proportionately. It's really not your McDavids, your Crosbys, your Ovechkins who are drawing as many, which is kind of a weird effect there. But that is starting to maybe change a little bit, but I don't think it's in an unhealthy way. I think it's more of an equalizing things out type of way. But you wouldn't see Crosby take a slash and, dive to the ice and shaking his hand and grabbing his hand and all that kind of stuff. That's just not how the game really is. And players who do that tend to get that turned on their heads very quickly.
Yeah, I'm more like on the between where they get hit with a stick and you can tell they definitely bit themselves to make blood come out to make it a major. And then
again, that's some of the gamesmanship too, where you're trying to, if you draw blood, you can get an extra minor penalty and 2 more minutes out of it. So there's some guys who might try and do that, but that's more gamesmanship to me than the faking it because I'm trying to sell a call.
Yeah, and then when they drop the gloves and then that other guy skates away and doesn't drop his gloves, automatically draws a penalty. I get it, it's smart hockey, but if it was me,
I hate it as a fan.
Regardless. Yeah, like I grew up wanting to watch hockey because 1, I knew I was going to see checking, and 2, I knew I was going to see a fight. And then it turned into this guy dropped his gloves, the other guy skated away. Now there's a penalty, power play going on.
Right.
So I want to ask you just some predictions. An interesting thing for people who don't really watch NHL like that, they have different names for MVP, for best goalie, for stuff like that. So Dan, I would ask that you also educate us too, because I'm going to ask certain questions and let me know if there's even an award for that and what the proper award is. So
for sure.
So for your NHL MVP, what's the official name for that?
Yep. So that's the Hart Trophy.
Okay.
So that's the player judged most valuable to his team by the hockey writers. And there is a separate award, the Ted Lindsay Award, which is given out for excellence as voted on by the players. So there's kind of 2 tiers to that MVP. One is decided on by the hockey writers, Pro Hockey Writers Association, and then the other one that is decided on by the players. And both of those are held closely in esteem. I think the players will tell you the Lindsay means more because they're getting that from their players, but they're the players they're playing with and against. But the Hart Trophy kind of has more of that prestige factor, if you want to look at it that way.
Who's your prediction for the Hart Trophy this year?
That's a really good question. Any year that Connor McDavid is skating, he is a threat to win that award. He's just that good. If it went to the overall most talented player in the league, it would be him pretty much every year. That said, I think part of that is going to depend on team success as well. His Edmonton Oilers play in a division that is not particularly good this year. The Pacific is, I think, far and away the worst of the divisions in the NHL. That said, I still think he's got a chance to put up a lot of really good numbers this year, be a 50-goal scorer, be a 110 to 120-point player. He's done that over the last couple of years and is just continuing to get better.
And do you think that there's someone that the players might respect a little more than McDavid that would win the Lindsay Trophy over?
I think that's a little bit different too. It's very common that a player will win both awards. It's kind of rare that you would have somebody win one and not the other. But again, that could be the type of thing where, we saw last year Cale Makar having a historically good season for a defenseman. And he won the Norris Trophy, which is given out to the top defenseman as a result. However, I think because the writers sometimes go, well, he's a defenseman, there's an award for that. Or he's a goalie, there's an award for the best goalie. We can give it to the forward who scored the most points or scored the most goals. Let the players decide what they want to do for their award, and then we'll make sure that they get it as a defenseman or as a goalie. So there is some of that as well. And Makar is, again, a type of guy who could be in that role as well. But I would think McDavid, and the betting numbers reflect this as well, is kind of an overwhelming favorite for both of those awards.
You brought up the Norris Trophy. Beyond Makar, who else should we probably look for that might win that?
A couple others who could be in the conversation there would be Adam Fox of the New York Rangers, Victor Hedman, again, of the Tampa Bay Lightning, someone in there as well. Roman Josi last year had one of the highest point scoring seasons for a defenseman in about 25 years. And again, because Makar had scored more goals and their point totals were close, Makar got the nod. He also had some better defensive metrics. But again, when you're putting up that type of point total as a defenseman, you're going to get some love for the award. That's just the nature of the voting there. So those are all guys that I think could be in there as well.
And the award for best goalie, what is that called?
That's the Vezina Trophy.
The Vezina Trophy.
the two goalies we've talked about so far, Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, I could see those guys in there. I would love to say Carter Hart. I hope that he turns things around and kind of recovers, but knowing that Philly isn't going to be as good this year, he would be a long shot, unfortunately.
I will say I've been told Tortorella's, offense or his coaching mindset really does favor defense and helps goalies.
Yes, very
So
much so.
I think if the Flyers somehow surprised and end up like a 6th seed, and we're asking a lot of a team that's obviously rebuilding here. I'm not saying that, but weirder things have happened. If somehow they ended up with like a 5th or 6th seed, and Hart's the reason why, I could see him being in the running for something like that.
Yeah, one of the things about Tortorella as a coach is his systems are so physical and defensive minded. I liken it similarly to what Greg Popovich does in the NBA, where it's that focus on the fundamentals of the game, but he takes it so much further than what Pop does, in the sense that it is strictly that defense and that goaltending and building around your checking game. Torts would rather win a 2-1 hockey game than a 5-1 hockey game, because he thinks 5-1 is too much offense and you're being too showy and running up the score on your opponent. You don't do that. He's a very old school minded head coach, which I think for the Flyers right now is something that they need to kind of change the culture around the team. I think he is going to be a very entertaining and very good fit, and he will make the Flyers a more competitive team on a nightly basis. I don't think the results are necessarily going to result in a playoff berth this year. But I do think the Flyers are going to be a tougher team to play night in and night out than they were a year ago.
Awesome. I think that's all we could really ask as fans. If the team is showing a little bit more grit and a little less gritty in Philadelphia. Nothing against gritty, but
right.
We'd like to know our players' names.
Well, and I'll say this too: if it is a bad year for the Flyers and they're looking at a top 5 pick, this upcoming draft class is the deepest in a long time. Historically, 2003 and 2015 are kind of viewed as the best draft classes of the last 20 years. I don't think it's a stretch to say this next year's class might be better than both of those. It is a very deep class.
Do you think the Flyers kind of throw the season to get a better pick?
I wouldn't say throw the season, but I would say they're in a position where if they think that by moving away some of those players and stockpiling more assets, they can also potentially increase their odds of winning the draft lottery, they might be making some of those types of moves at the trade deadline. Again, and with the draft lottery, that kind of does help to prevent some of that outright tanking. However, players who I would say any of the top 10 forwards this year in this draft class would be top 3 just about any other year. It's that deep of a class for forwards in particular. So whoever the Flyers get, if they get a top 5 pick, they're getting somebody who's going to be very good and make a big impact on the organization for a long time.
I have heard, and to put it into NBA perspective, that people were afraid that the Flyers hiring Torts this year was going to basically what they call clippering yourself. The NBA Los Angeles Clippers were a notoriously awful franchise, and they hired Larry Brown, who ended up coaching the Sixers, for 1 season, and he got them into the playoffs. Well, that year was the year Tim Duncan came out, who ended up being considered one of the greatest power forwards of all time. And then they were awful the following year and got the number 1 pick, and they got this guy, Michael Olowokandi. Do you know who Michael Olowokandi is?
I do, because he was traded to the Timberwolves, and that was their big get during their 2004 or 2003, 2004 run to the Western Conference Finals. So they had Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, Kevin Garnett, and then their big trade piece was supposed to be Michael Olowokandi.
One of these things is not like the other.
Absolutely.
So that was a lot of people's concern. Dan, you can stick around for a few more minutes. I got some
questions. Yeah, I can stick around for a few more.
But first and foremost, before we go into that, I'm going to bring up our Philadelphia Foodie segment. This is kind of something where I focus a little bit on a food aspect in the Delaware Valley and just in general. And what's coming up is National Beer and Pizza Day. It's actually next week, October 9th. So, fellas, I got to ask you.
That's the best day of the year.
Yeah. I tell you, anything that involves pizza is the best day of the year. What is the best pizza you've ever had? And I'll start with you, Vince. Best pizza you ever had?
I forget the name of the place down here around us. I think it's a Moore, but they probably had the best pizza that we've had in a while, and it wasn't greasy. You know, it was perfect. Not bad. Went down good.
Anything extra special about it, or just that it wasn't greasy? Just just kind of they did the basics right.
Nah, I just feel really bad right now. We ordered so we ordered a pizza the other day, and we actually put the video on. So Rachel is halfway through her second slice, and she's like, "Why does this taste like fucking pepperoni?" They put the pepperoni under the cheese.
Oh no!
Yeah, we didn't blast them or anything, but it was actually a really good pizza with the way they did it, with the pepperoni under the cheese compared to being on top. But so yeah, we were wrong.
I wanted to see because you shared that photo too. You ordered pepperoni and there was like 3 pepperonis.
Yeah, they were marking where the pepperoni was.
What about you, Dan? Best pizza you ever had?
Best pizza I ever had was at a place called Thirsty Pagan in Superior, Wisconsin. This was like my favorite spot. I used to live in Duluth, Minnesota, which is right across the border, and would make it a point to, cross the state line, go over to Wisconsin, and pick up this pizza. They had a few different ones that were really good. One was like it was a white chicken pizza. So it had like a garlic cream sauce, garlic chicken on there too. Phenomenal. But they had one that had like 3 meats and 7 different veggies on there and just loaded it up. And it was such a garbage pizza. But it was a thick crust. It was like a casserole almost. Best pizza I've had for sure.
Now there's a place. It's not as good as it used to be in the Philly area because now they're in the stadium and they're out in like in the suburbs. But there used to be a place called Lorenzo's that was in South Philly or on South Street in Philadelphia. And I lie to you not, guys. I don't know, Vince, if you've ever had them, but Dan, slices were the size of your head. But they were done so well, and they did all the basics right. I mean, the cheese, the sauce ratio was great. Wasn't greasy. I've been also told there's a place out here called Pinocchio's that does square pizza that I need to try too. But yeah, man. I mean, listen, if you hadn't had an opportunity recently, that's an excuse to go out, get some pizza. By the way, I mean, listen, it's a free country. If you want to put pineapple on your pizza, go right ahead, but that's not a pizza. Just saying. So, with that being said, I did want to ask one more kind of interesting thing just with the time we have remaining, and that's kind of commentary. I mean, Dan, you mentioned you do commentary. For us that have watched stuff, there's been a lot of interesting commentary, both actual and people kind of, the celebrities and stuff doing stuff, kind of voiceover. And I'll give you an example.
Buck in his own zone, brings it out to center, takes a hard hit from Cross Hannes.
Do you just keep on going when you accidentally make something like that and just say?
Yep. I've had times where I'm on a call and I say something where I slur a word or I mispronounce a player's name. One of the nice things with hockey is that it moves so fast that you can almost just let it go and move on. Baseball, with how long it takes between pitches, like if you say something bad there, you're going to laugh about it until the next pitch. Hockey, there's so much going on that, I mean, you have to let something like that go. And, I mean, that's obviously an extreme example from a hockey standpoint, not something that happens very often. Likely what he was – and as you call that play up again, if you can show the video on that
Buck
again.
in his own zone, brings it out to center, takes a hard hit from Cross Hannes.
So what I think he's expecting to say there is that he shoots the puck into the zone and then realizes that as he gets hit, it's not a shot, it's a hit. So then his brain just instantly makes that switch, but you can't say that on television. So it's that kind of a transition that is in particular tricky for a broadcaster to adjust.
So you're saying in hockey you shouldn't bring attention to it like this?
Assault, curling off the screen, driving baseline. Oh, you fat, with a 3. Yes, I just said that. That is that man's name. Don't tweet at me. I don't want a tweet from anybody. That's the man's name.
Yeah, again, there, where you're calling the attention to it. And I guess the player's name, you never want to put the player in a bad light. And if a player has an unfortunate name, Cox, Butts, whatever, you get these guys that have those names across sports. You don't want to call attention to that fact any more than you have to, because you're always trying to put the players in the game in the best light and keep the focus on the game. I think that's kind of the best approach, and that's what I like to do with my broadcasting as well. I'll tell you right now, here's an example. Kid who played for Columbus last season, whose last name is spelled Boffa. How do you think that's pronounced?
Bofa?
Bofa. Like Bofa these nuts. It's exactly like that. So as you can imagine, that kid has heard that his entire life. He's heard it in the locker room. I think
that's a lot better than "ho you fat."
Yeah, right. It is, and objectively, most people probably not even going to get that. But to those who know, "ho you fat" is a lot more obvious than just Bofa. But being around the game, it's that difference to it. So, and he's a good player and a good kid too. So I got to talk to him at one point, and a nice kid. So I got nothing bad to say about him, and not going to call any more attention to it than that.
So have you guys?
But I'm still laughing when I hear the announcer say Wentz sacked by Cox and Sweat.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I'm too childish to not. I couldn't do it. I would be giggling the whole time.
There was a picture of the Eagles a few years ago when Chris Long was on the team, and there was this other guy who didn't make the team. His last name was Green, and they all sat next to each other, so that way it read Long Green Cox. Yep. So they know what's going on. They do.
And if the players are having fun with it, that's fine. That's their deal. But as a broadcaster, we have to be a little bit more proper, I guess, than that. A little more formal. Professional, I think, is probably the best way to put it.
So I'm going to play something else. This is now it's a minute 45 long. We don't have to repeat anything that's being said here. But this is commentary done by somebody who is not a commentator. And you'll see what I mean. And I'm going to be curious, someone who does it for a living, how you feel about this. I think it's great, but, follow me on this one.
This was my favorite play of the game. It's 3rd and 6. The Broncos trying to find a rhythm, right? Corny Wilson dropped back to pass and let that bitch rip. Turf Monster got Robertson. He fell and got bombed on in front of his family. Then this grown man called that other grown man a little boy. That's what that shit is right there. Robertson only 5'8", so that's why he did that. And Robertson was like, I'm little, bitch, nigga. I got you with your bitch ass. You still little, nigga. I don't give a fuck. After all that shit happened, Lil Cuz got activated, nigga. Bruh strapped up and said, I'm on everything. He see number 10 and just started assaulting motherfuckers, man. Get your ass on out the way before I lay you down, nigga. Now he got number 10 on that same sideline. He hype, nigga. Who little, nigga? I'm on your ass, nigga. Tall or small. I don't give a fuck, nigga. Whole time, Hobbs been hyping Cuz up. Judy Salty was like, man, I don't give a fuck. Nigga got a little bitty tackle. Nigga, I caught a bomb on Cuz. Nigga, I don't give a fuck about him. Really, though. His helmet only go up to their shoulder pads. Like, he is kind of little. Robertson's still hyped up because that ain't really, they ain't even yet. He's still turned up on everything, though. Here we go on another spring game. Aggressive as hell. This little motherfucker's tackling. And here come Hype Man Hobb. Do your shit, little nigga. Do that shit, nigga. Robertson making plays all over the field now. Now this motherfucker feels invincible. Bitch-ass Broncos finally hand the ball off to Melvin Gordon. He get his pocket pick. Tiny Loc got that bitch and just started mixing niggas. Fumble return for 60 yards or some shit like that. He really should be returning the kicks if we be honest, nigga. Now Tiny Loc and 2 turn in the end zone celebrating. This his fucking origin story, bro. Shame this nigga into superstardom. He ain't even on number 10 no more. He on 14, but he see something. Tiny Loc already barking, nigga. I'm on your ass. I told you I was on your ass. Dumped this nigga in the dirt and then did the Allen Iverson on his ass, nigga. Don't you ever fucking disrespect me, nigga.
Yeah, so I think with something like that, I mean, that's not trying to be professional. You wouldn't watch, you're not going to pay a ton of money to watch that. But there's still a market for that type of commentary and people who want to call the game that way.
Oh, so, you mean like this?
Here you go. Oh, yeah.
There he is. There he is. Yes.
Oh, yes.
That's what we're talking about. Wagner, a veteran, right? Get him down. Now get out and let these guys take over.
Yeah, dude just got dummied on that one. But again, that's we're having a conversation about it right now and how we're reacting to it versus how a broadcaster is going to react to that on a call. And that's one of the things that I love about the Manning cast is that kind of becomes a hybrid of the two, where I learned more from watching the Manning cast and how they break down a game than
Absolutely.
most other games that I've watched in my life, just with the type of analysis that they bring. It's a different way to watch. It's a non-traditional way to watch, but it's still a fun way to watch as well.
So let me ask you guys, and I'm going to play my favorite, but do you either one of you have a moment where a commentator either slipped up or had to call something unique that really sticks out in your mind that might be your favorite moment, whether it's on radio, TV, what have you?
I got one, Vince. Did you have one that you wanted to go with, or do you want me to go?
Nah, we've been sitting here waiting because we always say boner, and we're waiting, and the announcers say it, and we're waiting for one of them to finally slip and say boner when it happens.
So Alec
that's the one. We're waiting on that one, but
that's a long fly boner.
Yeah, but that's the one we're waiting on. But we haven't really. We just hear names get called differently, and it's like first names. It's not even like something good.
Go ahead, Dan. Dan, can you hear us? Oh no, I think we lost Dan. Hold on, Dan. Log back in. I'm gonna remove him. Let's see if I can add him back.
Yeah, we're good. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Had an internet freeze up for a second here.
That's right, Dan. What was the one that you were going to talk about?
Yeah, and I hope this isn't the clip that you're about to show because I don't want to steal the thunder on this one. But I think for me, one that came to mind was Kevin Harlan, who he's done some incredible things as a broadcaster, and he's just the greatest.
Is this the one with the streaker?
No, actually, that wasn't the one where I was going, but yes, that one is up there as well. He is calling a Chiefs playoff game, or not playoff game, but it's like the regular season finale, and the Chiefs are playing somebody, and the Chiefs need to win to get into the playoffs, and then they can clinch the number one spot if Miami beats somebody else. Okay. Let's just throw the Patriots out there because that's a division and that's a division finale. So while he is calling the Chiefs game and explaining what's happening there, he's explaining that the crowd has just seen on the Jumbotron the score of the Patriots and Dolphins game, and the Dolphins are winning. And the crowd is reacting to that. So he's saying, okay, Chiefs have the ball first and goal from the 5. Mahomes on a slant to Kelsey, didn't connect. Second down, Dolphins, and then starts calling play-by-play for the Dolphins game, which isn't even the game that he's at. He's watching it off of TV, relaying it to the audience that the fans are also seeing because this is up on the Jumbotron. No notes, no preparation or anything. Like, that's why Kevin Harlan is the GOAT to me. Like, he is just absolutely incredible and totally off the cuff is calling basically 2 games at once for both a TV and radio audience. It's just incredible. Go look that one up on YouTube after the show here.
So I got a Kevin Harlan one too. The video's not that great because they didn't want to show it on TV what was going on, but you'll get the gist.
3rd and 4, looks into the nickel of San Francisco in the secondary. Hey, somebody has run out on the field. Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here comes
They're coming
the blue
from the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line. That was the most exciting thing to happen tonight.
I tell you what, that was a great call on your part. That was a great call.
Dude, Kevin Harlan's the man.
He could read the phone book, and I would pay money to listen to that.
Dude, my favorite thing is that should be me walking out of a bar at any time. The guy is drunk, but there he goes.
It's such a good line.
I just think commentary can be great when you loosen up a little bit. I think it's why that you have some people who you normally wouldn't see doing commentary, especially these players and stuff, starting to get these positions. You see what's going on with the Manning cast, and I mean, I just think it's awesome. I think personality is pretty decent. Normally, I try to wrap up with one more little funny thing, but I wanted to ask if there's anything else, kind of, final thought wise, that either one of you have about anything. It could be about the upcoming NHL season, or it could be about just the Phillies. Anything that you want to share.
Yeah, I see the Phillies getting past the Cardinals just because we've already had their number once this year, and we're back to being healthy. And I think the playoffs, game one, is going to be a whole different vibe in that clubhouse, and you're going to see a lot more bats on balls. And
Vince, who will be the MVP of that series?
Against the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Damn, that's a tough one because, in my heart, I really hope it would be Harper, because I feel like he got screwed this year when he got injured right before the All-Star game, because he was definitely going to be in it. So him getting an MVP in the first round of the wild card would be huge for me, for him.
I'm calling it now, a guy who's underperformed, I feel, all year, even though he's been picking it up. It's going to be Castellanos, MVP of this series.
I feel like we get a hot bat off him in the postseason. Him, JT, Schwarber, the bats that we got this season, I know the other two been there, but the bats that we got and everything that's come up, I feel like the playoffs just brings this team into a whole different devilish form. And I don't know. I'm kind of worried for the rest of the postseason, for not us, but the other teams, because I think they're ready to set hell on fire and just take it out.
There's driving to deep left field by Castellanos, and that'll be a home run.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love it. Just as long as they're not saying that, and they go, and now they've cut the lead to 4. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, just to take them, one of those stairs goes deep into the night, like we used to get back in the day. Final thoughts from you, Dan?
October is such a great time in the sports calendar. I absolutely love it. One of my favorite times of year. Playoff baseball. You've got the start of the NHL and NBA seasons. You've got NFL is full swing. College football is full swing. There's really, this month, March, and I would say May and June, best times to be a sports fan. Enjoy it while it's here. Take in as much as you can. And if you get a chance to go to a game live, never turn that down.
And I will end this show with just one little thing. I agree with both of you as far as the Phillies might be on the verge of doing something really, really special. And as far as just always go to a live game when you get a chance, even if it's, pro, college, minor league, major league, even sometimes high school games are great. But I want to do this final thing in the whole idea of Halloween coming up, and in honor of your co-host and partner, Vince, Rachel, got a little dad joke for you. Check this out.
I have a joke for you. What is a skeleton's favorite snack?
I don't know.
Go on, guess.
Death?
No. Go on, guess.
No.
Come on. Guess. Why are you laughing? I haven't told the punchline yet. What is a skeleton's favorite snack? Guess.
You're putting me in a lot of pressure.
Guess. Fuck. Guess. Guess, goddamn you. Why won't you answer me? What is my favorite snack?
Bones?
No! No! What is it? Why must you fail me so often? Ribs! Spare ribs! Fuck!
It's so good.
Good night,
Dude, I would
everybody.
be flipping the table if she said that joke.
It was just so great.
So good.
I saw it and I had to share it. The joke, what is a skeleton's favorite snack? Spare ribs. Kind of goes flat, but that delivery was awesome.
That's what it is. It's all in the timing and all in the delivery.
Oh, man. But thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Vince. Hopefully, the Phillies do an amazing, amazing job in the playoffs, and we're talking about it for a few weeks to go, up until November. Looking forward to the hockey season, Dan. One more time, the AHL show, AHL Beauties, I believe it's called, correct?
Yep, American Beauties. Yep, American Beauties at Tuesday nights at 8:30. here on the Old City Sports Network, and then Pod Snipe Selly as well, 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. And anytime you want me back, I'm happy to be here for you.
No problem. The fan lot is pre-series, post-series. We might have a few extra tidbits in there. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're thinking about Game 3. If it comes to it, we're going to do a whole live stream on it. So
beautiful. When's the next time you're on? Are you guys on, before the first game on Friday?
It's going to be a little messed up because the first game Friday is at 2. So we're going to end up doing kind of a post-pre after the game. And then hopefully we wrap it up Saturday. If we go to a Game 3, I think we're going to end up going live. Wonderful. And because they're both at 8:45. So.
All right, fellas, take it easy. Thank you so much for coming on. And, of course, I'm Sheik Styles, OCSN Live. You catch it, right now, 7:30 to 8:30 on Wednesdays. And tomorrow, Delco Dive, our craft beer show where we talk about everything and get a little nuts, is Thursdays at 8:30. And just one final thing, as I mentioned, there's a ton of Philadelphia teams doing really, really well. Don't forget to check out our friends at The Fanatics. You will see the link in the description if you're listening to this on Spotify. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the link there as well. Pick up all your Philly gear now. We will not tell anyone that you didn't have any Phillies gear until yesterday. You should have had it already, but that's okay. Now's the perfect time to buy some new stuff. Have a good night, everyone, and please stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.